A word to the wise, we are an explicit podcast tackling content with adult themes as well as entering spoiler territory if you aren't caught up with us. This week, that would be through chapter 42. So we're talking about chapters 39 through 42. Hey there, this is Cross.
I'm PJ.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. You should think of us as your intoxicating weekly book club.
As you can hear, my co-host isn't as sick as he was last week, which is great for me, so I don't have to hear his gross, raspy voice. And you guys don't either, so,
yeah,
you know.
Right.
Feels good.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's still like sickish, but not like really sick, which is good news for everyone at home. So today is our 8th episode discussing The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, and we are going to be chatting about chapters 39 through 42. But before we do that, PJ, what are you drinking this fine morning?
So I decided to make that sort of tweaked version of the Jungle Bird that I talked about not last week, but several episodes ago.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So 1.5 ounces of rum. I'm using Appleton Estate 12 year. 0.75 ounces of Campari. 1.5 ounces of pineapple juice. I upped the lime juice from 0.5 ounce to 1 ounce. 0.5 ounce of turbinado sugar. And I garnished it with a lime wedge. 1, because I don't have any pineapple fronds. And 2, because I wasn't sure if it needed even more lime than that. So I got that as an option to add a little bit of extra. So yeah, I'm liking it a lot better with this extra lime. I did it with like 0.75 ounces a couple weeks ago, just at home. I still needed a little bit extra, so went for 1 ounce. I know that's kind of deviating from the point of the drink, but I like limes, so you know what? Sue
me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
Back half beer. I've got the double daisy cutter again because it's in my fridge, and I haven't been to the liquor store in a couple weeks. So
nice.
It was either that or like fair. A bomber of something, and I didn't really.
What was that awful beer that you had last time?
Awful beer
you
last time.
You did not like. Tome? Was it the Tome?
This was the one. It wasn't awful. I just didn't love it. Or maybe it was the Tome.
I thought it was the Tome, yeah.
Yeah, it might have been the Tome.
Because you're like, ugh, because I remember you opening it and non-verbally going like, no go, in the middle of the show, and I laughed.
The second one I had of it, or like the next one I had of it, whatever it was, wasn't as bad. So maybe it was just like what was on my palate already from, I don't know.
Cocktail palate, yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, okay.
I gave it an unfair review, I think.
Fair enough.
So, it was okay.
Enough. All right. Well, now that we've addressed that for Tome.
Tome, you're okay.
You're still good in our books.
Good's generous.
All right.
It's fine. Crossland, what are you drinking?
I am having a lovely Ward 8, so we're both in the red cocktail train. The reason that I have orange juice that I was drinking in the Devil's Cut that I'm still drinking as well, is because I wanted to make a Ward 8. So a Ward 8 is 2.5 ounces rye, 3/4 ounces orange juice, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, a bar spoon of grenadine, and generally garnished with an orange wedge. I didn't want to fully cut into my orange wedge because I only have one, so I just peeled it and gave it that expression. And It's delicious. I would honestly say I would probably tone back the rye the 1/2 ounce.
Okay.
Because it's a little strong. Yeah. That's not a bad thing, right? But I'm not getting what I expected the complex flavor profile to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
Okay. I've never had good luck with orange juice in cocktails. Like I've never really liked it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to give that a shot.
Yeah. This is the perfect amount without like going like mimosa or, something that's a very intentionally like a screwdriver. Like I love a screwdriver, but
see, I don't really like tequila sunrises either.
You don't like tequila sunrises, which is one thing, but you don't make your screwdrivers with a little bit of Sprite. That's the other thing that you don't do, which is wrong.
All right.
A little bit of carbonation.
Fair.
Goes a long way. Yeah. Otherwise, a screwdriver is literally 2 ingredients. That's desperation by our own standards, right? Like,
yeah,
just vodka and OJ.
I feel like I've added something else to it before. I can't remember.
Think on that. Back half beer, I am having a Super Lemon Haze from Sycamore because they're delicious, and I wanted something sour adjacent that I was craving yesterday. So that's what I ended up getting because it's been amazing.
When was the last time you didn't have a Super Lemon Haze on the show?
Not that long ago.
Okay.
But
I feel like it's been several weeks.
Maybe it has. I don't know.
I think it's been a lot.
I haven't gone through that much beer. Has really been the thing. I've been focusing more on making cocktails in my spare time than kind of enjoying beer variously. So, yeah, I didn't, I didn't go through it that fast.
I was going to make something with gin today, but I realized I don't have more gin.
Womp
so,
womp. Just means you have to come visit.
I just felt like I've been doing a lot of tiki stuff, a lot of rum stuff. I'm like, I should mix this up a little bit, but I wanted something a little bit more voluminous anyway, just to not sip on super hard at 10 in the morning.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's also, I was like, orange juice is like, the accepted, breakfasty. So I was like, I'm going to make a drink with orange juice. That was my game plan here.
That's fair.
Cool. Well, with that, let's get into our chapters here. So we start with chapter 39, and of course our logbook entry. So this is the beginning of part 4, Knives. Our logbook entry is, I know your argument. We speak of the anticipation, of things foretold, of promises made by our greatest prophets of old. Of course, the hero of ages will fit the prophecies. He will fit them perfectly. That's the idea. This is one that I read to you last week that we cut from the episode because you were so like, what? I thought I saw something. And yeah, no, that was the book as we later found out. But I really like, again, I think this is a repeat. I think this is one that came up in a different section. Not that it was with a chapter, but I think it was on the in-between.
It's been mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of any of this anymore.
Yeah.
After this section and like thinking more on it, on what we'll get into it, I'm sure, but I'm having a hell of a time reckoning what any of this means anymore.
I think that's a reasonable response, especially because I think Sazed and Tinwell are dealing with that too. They're like, what the hell do we do with this?
Right. And yeah, I have a lot to say about that section. So we'll get into it when we get there.
Definitely. It's where, there's a good amount to say in between those two characters. We spend most of this week I was just thinking about this, with other characters that aren't Vin.
Yeah.
Like almost all of it. We're in Vin for like a couple of pages.
Yeah, because she's
laid up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hurting.
Injured. Damaged.
Intentionally knocked unconscious for most of it.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
She's drugged, sedated, for good reason. She would absolutely have left, given the opportunity.
She would have 100% stalked Elend to the Kololos camp, for sure, no question, if she could have. But that's getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. So, my God, we start off this chapter. This entire part is started off with Straff Venture. Talk about like tone setting to like have us immediately jump from like a low point with, our team into Straff's head. And fuck that man still. But we get to address Straff Venture and Zane kind of having this conversation back and forth about Zane sacrificing all of those mistings, and we hear inside of the internal monologue of Straff complaining about the work that it took to procure them via mistresses. And like, it is the most disgusting, reviling shit. God damn it,
he's kind of a dick.
Yeah. Kind of a dick? Just kind of?
Kind of.
I don't know. Kind of a dick. He also says gambit. He says on your gambit.
He does say gambit, which I think means we have to drink. I'm setting that rule up right now. If somebody else says one of your fucking words.
It can't be interesting. Interesting does not qualify. All right. Fair enough.
I think in this section, what's most surprising to me is how out of his way Zane goes to like make strategic decisions for Straff without Straff's knowledge and doesn't explain them. Like, I don't understand his motivation to do that at all yet. he doesn't strike me as somebody that like wants to take initiative for Straff, like for Straff's betterment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. He's pulling some strings, and maybe he's like trying to position himself in a positive way, but I don't know. It's weird to me.
I can definitely understand that sentiment. I think that Zane finds himself at a difficult crossroads because he doesn't want to necessarily help. He doesn't know what to do. He's almost like indifferent to everything because he is just this like Mistborn knife, you know, as he self-describes.
But he resents that.
Yeah. And like, why wouldn't he just leave? He could just leave, but he chooses not to because he doesn't have Vin. He doesn't have like a thing to live for.
Yeah. It's a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
But
that is a lot of speculation. That's kind of based on last week more than this week's, but
right. That's fair. I don't know. The weirdest part is that he didn't explain himself. He didn't explain what he set up. Maybe he wants to keep it all in the dark. Who knows?
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the mistresses?
In general?
Yeah. Well, the general like prospect of what Straff is doing to create all these missing children and like the degree to which he went.
I mean, we kind of already knew that.
Not in yes, and not in such strict terms. You know?
Yeah, it's gross. It's really gross. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't necessarily see it as out of character for him, so I wasn't surprised by it. No,
definitely in character. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely in character. It's almost not a shock because Straff sucks so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we move to the secret meeting that happens between Straff and Penrod about delivering the city to Straff as we expected based on what the crew was talking about kind of last week. We had kind of discussed this possibility and likelihood that this is what was going to happen. And Penrod, I think, was even upfront about it to Elend, that was what was going to happen.
Yeah, what a slimy bastard Penrod is at this point. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of what I was pointing to last week. So I can't say I'm super surprised about Penrod's decision to like come to Straff. He was an advocate of handing the city over from the jump, like before they deposed Elend at all, or even talked about doing that. So it doesn't make sense that he would oppose or stand up against these armies now when it's only gotten worse. He does, though, admit that Elend's not an idiot and like stands up for Elend a little bit. So that was kind of cool. I'd like to see a little bit more conversation on that outside of like talking to Elend. I'd like to see more of the behind the scenes of what the assemblymen actually think of him, because there seems to be a decent amount of respect there. Actually, they just circumstances aren't such that he can thrive in their eyes. So at least there's a glimmer of hope there, though. You know.
Mm-hmm. Right. There is something there, which I think is I think that's a good thing to remark on, is that they really, really care about, or like Penrod does stand up for Elend to his father, no less, of whom is going to be taking the city. So it's like, Straff, of course, like then demands fealty almost immediately after that because he's like, know who you're talking to. But I agree with you. I think that at the very least, while Penrod is kind of a man of his word, I mean, this is kind of what we knew was going to happen. So this isn't completely unexpected. But at the same time, he's stand up enough to, remark positively about our boy.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what Phylan's opinion is at this point of our boy.
Yeah. That'd be, I don't know. I don't know what that would be like.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Phylan in general. We were in his perspective for like a couple pages at most. But I was confused in this section about the setting. It took me a couple of read-throughs to understand that they were like meeting out in the open and on horses. I don't know if they were like just standing in the field or what, but
yeah, I think they were kind of just like standing at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just
near the gate. Yeah.
I wish there was more scene building on this one.
Yeah.
That's
fair.
Super minor complaint.
I think what betrays us in the scene a little bit is the fact that Zane and Straff are having a conversation. Zane is just running on the ground, talking to him. Like he is running next to him, not riding a horse, because he's a Mistborn, and he can just do that. And Straff is riding the horse, and they're like having this conversation while they're riding up to some degree.
Were they riding? they suddenly hear a rustling in the bushes.
I think they get to that point eventually. Okay. They ride, and then they get there, and then the rustling comes, and Penrod shows up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I just didn't read it close enough.
It's one of those. It's not a big deal, but you know, a little bit of scene setting can go a long way in some of these cases. So
yeah,
I feel ya. So Straff issues an order to exchange. Oh, did you have something? Did you have something else? Okay, no. It looked like you're raising your hand, so I was like,
just itching my head.
Is this class or something? I was like, you don't have to raise your hand. You can just fucking talk to me. Hi. Hello, sir. Straff issues an offer to exchange the ATM for Penrod's shot at keeping the crown, you know, basically giving him that offer so he can retain sort of some form of leadership over top of the city and advance his house in general in kind of the old politic-y way. But Penrod does say basically that they haven't been able to find it. There is no ATM. And it was very kind of upfront about the fact that he's like, no one was able to find any of the ATM. So yeah, don't know what we can do for you there. And Straff obviously doesn't believe this as kind of the miner of the ATM. And that's kind of how that conversation with Penrod ends.
Yeah. He talks about the geodes and mining the geodes and knowing like how much was delivered versus and assumes that there's a lot more than what was distributed. But did he do the refinement as well?
I don't think there is any refinement with ATM because they they basically pull it out and it is ATM, like the ingestible.
Okay.
Because they have to reach through, right? The shards.
I assumed it was like ore that needed refining to get to the metal itself.
I don't think so. I think it is metal innately.
Okay. Then my point doesn't mean anything because I was wondering if the refining process just yielded a lot less than expected and there just isn't that much of it left.
I don't think we ever get that fully detailed. So I don't feel like refinement is never spoken of.
Okay.
But that is a curious question about like maybe there is a process there.
And
I don't think so, but I can't tell you why I don't think so.
Cool.
Get fucked.
Sounds good.
I'm just kidding. Did you have any other thoughts about kind of the all these leaders keep doubting the fact that there's no ATM and Straff most of all, of course, because like he mined this shit. Do you have any other thoughts on like where you think the ATM went?
I mean, I've said from very early
you're
on.
Still, like, you're holding on to the Lord Ruler's burning it. Yeah.
My only other thought is there is mention at the Conventicle of Saren about this, like spikes of a different metal. Like maybe that's ATM and it's being stored as spikes, or not stored, but it was like turned into spikes for maybe some more experimental versions of the Inquisitors, or maybe the Lord Ruler himself if he was experimenting on himself with it. I don't know, but that's my only other thought. If it hasn't been consumed entirely for whatever reason, because I don't know. There's obviously other things that the Lord Ruler and now Vin that most people aren't aware are even possible. And maybe there's something that uses a ton of ATM that they're just not aware of. I don't know.
All right. Cool.
Yep.
I don't know. All right. So we move on from Straff and Penrod having that discussion to Straff realizing that he's been poisoned by his son again. And Zane, what a guy. You know, Straff is left with kind of thinking that he's got to do something about this rebellious son of his. Do you think that Straff will attempt to kill Zane? Do you think that, he feels that? Also weird, Zane doesn't want to poison him. He just is because it's to keep Straff on his toes, which is super fucked. The whole relationship dynamic is incredible.
Yeah. I think yes. I think he actually will try.
Okay.
And I think it'll push Zane to actually abandon Straff.
Okay.
Completely and try to work more closely with Vin. Maybe not in parallel to, but a little bit more helpful. Straff himself talks about how Zane doesn't make sense and is muttering like a madman. Like, who knows what's actually going to happen with this dude. I don't think Zane is actually insane, though.
Okay.
Still, I think there's something possessing him. I don't think it's insanity. Like, whatever this God voice is, I think is an actual entity.
That makes sense. I can buy into that idea. Yeah. All right. Cool. I did turn that into a prediction because you did make a couple of statements there that felt like predictions about where Zane is going to go. So it feels like that.
That makes sense.
Strap's knowledge of poisons, of course, is fairly impressive, and it makes me think about other uses for tin. I know we've talked about this in kind of Devil's Cut, and I think with Lindsay a little bit. But is there anything else you can think of or anything that comes to mind now that we kind of see these other uses? I think of like blowing out your palate with spice, for instance. Like, it could be really wild and shocking. Like, you take a spoon of wasabi and then you burn tin just to like completely empty out your body. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
So, couple comments. First, about this scene. Like, he's running in. There's a sentence that just kind of goes under the radar because of the state of mind that Strap is in at the moment, but the troops are all scattering as though they're getting ready for an attack. And that's not mentioned again afterwards, I don't think.
I think that's where our sense of urgency comes from in this chapter, though, a little bit, you know?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't know if it was like they got word that the Koloss army is getting closer and are like taking up arms and preparing. Something like that. Or maybe there's something else entirely that's happening that we'll learn about soon. I don't know. But regarding tin in general, I think artistry of all kinds would be really, really cool with tin if it works that way. So like musical composition, really being able to pick out and hear what makes the most sense melodically, and painting for the same reason, creating recipes for cooking, like figuring out similarly what harmonizes best and really getting nuanced with flavors and stuff. Just really getting into the subtle parts of all the pieces. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. What about you? Any applications that you'd like to see?
No, I like your idea that it's music, right? Or like that music fits, because you could really like pick apart instruments and like really refine, you know, the particulars of the sound that you like. I think that's a really engaging facet. It makes me think that you putting this like little musical spin on it to some degree makes me think about tin and its possibilities with like dance, and like it doesn't change your interpretation of dancing. It just enhances your senses. So I guess maybe that doesn't count. But you would notice things. You might notice things like the subtle quick moves and things like that.
So like tango, where you have
that's
to
a great example.
Really sort of follow,
react,
and play off your partner. Something
that
like
was
that.
That was my first thought when you said that. I was like, maybe actually like tin for dancing is interesting.
Yeah, obviously, Devil's Cut. We talked about sex and tin,
hand in hand.
Lots of applications on that one. I think.
Yes,
we got into it a little bit more detailed. So, patreon.com/words and whiskey. You can listen to our Devil's Cuts and hear us talk about sex and allomancy.
Oh, God. That one was fun. Okay. With that, we go into chapter 40 here. We've got our logbook, and it is. And yet, something about this seemed so convenient. It felt almost as if we constructed a hero to fit our prophecies, rather than allowing one to arise naturally. This was the worry I had, the thing that should have given me pause when my brethren came to me, finally willing to believe.
Ah, God. What the fuck does this all mean, dude?
I don't know, dude. What do you think it means? No. If we're trying to relate the logbook to the chapter, we obviously spend time in this... Is it in this chapter or is it next chapter? Oh, it's next chapter that we are with Sazed and Tindwell. Never mind.
Yeah.
That doesn't even work. Yeah.
But we talked to, like, Zane.
Yeah.
Vin and Zane talk in this chapter, I think.
Or Soor, you know.
I don't have a lot to say about these logbook entries because I am really wrestling with the validity of any of it. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. This was a new one, though, wasn't it? I don't think we've seen this
I think
before.
so. I think this is, as of yet, an unused logbook entry. So, yeah.
Is this potentially talking about bringing Rashik in? Like, this could be...
I don't think it's so much Rashik as it is talking about the other folks within the... Oh, God, what... Worldbringers.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's more about them than anything else. Because it's when they start to believe. That's really what I think he's pointing to, if that makes sense.
This was where the thing that should have given me pause when my brethren... Okay.
That's where I was coming from on it. So, all right. So we're back with Vin while she's injured and recovering with Elend by her side. You know, this is just kind of a good scene, and it's all we spend with Vin this week. So we'll just kind of piece our way through it.
You gotta love how the first word she says when she wakes up is why. And she like kind of berates him a little bit. I mean, not berates, but dismisses the idea that she needs to be looked after. She's like, I'm fine. I didn't die. We're good.
Pewter burns. I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
Just kind of downplaying everything. But there's also the flinch that she notices when she like moves towards him to touch him, I think. And that's like that little motion fucks with her head for the rest of the section. Mm-hmm. Like the rest of the time with Vin really, really fucks with her. So that's an interesting comparison to make when we talk about Elend's perspective and he's wondering like why she's acting so weird. We know it's this. Like this is what she's acting weird about. But he doesn't seem to actually take it into consideration. He doesn't seem to think about her as like a monster. Maybe he does subconsciously. Maybe that flinch wasn't actually a flinch and she's just seeing things. She's pretty perceptive, though, so I don't know. We also learn that Elend's he's not as thorough with his, like, compassion for everybody as he seems to be, specifically because of his comments about the Khandra. It almost feels like before he knew that Vin, like, when he only knew Lady Valette, and he was completely ignorant of whether or not Ska were intelligent to the same degree as the noble class. It almost feels like judgment based on complete ignorance, but you would think that after everything he's gone through, he'd have a little bit more compassion and understanding of the whole thing. But this also means that Vin hasn't talked to Elend at all about her relationship with Orsur and how that's progressing. So,
yeah, I think that's a very clever way of kind of looking at that. Clever's not the right word. That's a great way of looking at it, because I think that while Elend is our boy philosopher, king not king, he is very ignorant of many things. You know, he's got some holes, he's got some flaws. I think that's a reasonable thing, and I think that he's gradually trying to shed those preconditioned thoughts that he has kind of in this area, in this arena. But it is shocking to see how he reacts to Khandra, because he's just used to it. You know, his house had a Khandra growing up. We know that. We've actually, I think we met the Khandra in the first book.
What was the name?
Tensoon, I think.
Tensoon, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've met his like old house Khandra, but we didn't really get to see those interactions. And the best we can do is we can get the stories from Orsur about how, you know, some masters will just beat them for fun, and, you know, kind of those things. So it's almost, he's truly like, well, he's not codifying because he's not making it legal, but he's got like moral boundaries for humans now, and that hasn't started to apply to other types of creatures, including the Koloss that he just murders in cold blood later. Like,
yeah.
You know, as I think more about that one, I'm like, yeah, right.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that.
We'll
when we
talk
get
about
there.
that a
But
lot,
like,
I'm sure.
I agree with you. I think that it's weird that doesn't apply. Like Elend doesn't apply that same idea to.
Speaking of Tensoon, though, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the imposter whenever that shows up. Somebody who already knows Elend pretty well, presumably from being in proximity, would just know how to navigate that better than somebody else.
Yeah, right. And I think, I wasn't trying to, give you or lead you anything there, but I think that is the most logical thing, because we do know that it's from Straff, or we assume it's from Straff, because Set was so much later that...
Yeah, this was before Set was there, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it was, Straff's assassins, and then Straff. Yeah. So it seems logical. And that would make the most sense from a spy level, because he probably does know Elend the best. So...
Right. Oh, it's not necessarily before Set. It was when Set was on his way in, because they found it right after they got Breeze from Set.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Fair.
Still think it's Set, or it's through Straff, but whatever.
Sure.
Irrelevant.
That works. Hearsay. What else was there with Vin here? I really do like the waking up with like why, like her perking up. We didn't really talk too much about the sort of reaction and flinch. The reason that this is so interesting to compare is you have at the last time that she sees Elend, she notices this and sees that reaction and kind of the horror in his face. And then one of the first things she sees after many, many apologies and forgiveness and like having this conversation about how excellent she is and how this doesn't change anything, she still feels that clinch in her chest in the same way. And so it feels like she hears the words, but she doesn't believe the actions.
Yeah, I think part of that is Reen coming back. Or I think Reen coming back is a symptom of that sort of headspace that she's in.
Yes, definitely. I think that Reen's voice in the back of her head scratching there again is 100% a symptom.
Yeah, but there's also now an actual external force of Zane, because his rhetoric is like echoing around in her head constantly throughout her. Like when we're in her perspective, we're always getting little echoed comments of what he said and what he's been reiterating. So that's just adding more complication and lack of confidence. Like it's removing her confidence to a certain extent.
Totally. Yeah, I think, especially when we get to the part where like Reen's voice is scratching the back of her head and, there's a lot of these different forces, but Zane is kind of like a manifestation in some way of that voice and that perspective. Not necessarily identically, right? Because Reen's voice in the back of her head is saying, he's going to leave you. Don't you see? He's going to leave you. And Zane is giving a path for her to leave him. And there's this like circling... It's almost like guiding her down the drain, right? Like it's almost spinning her down, where it's like there's so much around her that she cannot escape but fall down unless she actively chooses to like crawl up and out.
Yeah. It's just it's kind of perfect, because her problem in the past was always staying too long and staying because it's a known evil instead of an unknown evil, which is something she kind of kicked herself for constantly. So now, if he can convince her that this is a bad situation, she's probably more likely to take that initiative, because it's been something that she's been regretting, and like rectify that in her mind. Like, yeah, I am going to take initiative and leave before anything bad happens. So I don't know. It's the deck is stacked against her right now. It's really not great.
Her own deck stacked it against her, which is so terrible. That's the tragedy of Vin. Every time I say tragedy, there feels something final about it, like they're going to die, and like I'm informing you that they're going to die. So I'm just going to refer to everyone as like being tragic. So
that's fair.
Everyone dies eventually, like it's fine. So there's all of that. But then on top of this, we also get this like little tiny, really quick note that Set is also still stuck in the city and can't get out and can't, also isn't going to get out himself, like is not choosing to or not going to fight his way out, and has kind of bonded the causes together, effectively making it so that Set will fight on behalf of the city no matter what.
So this is that point where they come to the realization that he's like he's going to win or he's going to die. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
And he's doing whatever, like total all out sort of plan. What a coward. I can completely understand his approach and I get it, but he is gambling with the lives of thousands of people under him. And we know he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Dick.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I'm glad that you've dialed into Set. I think that he is incredibly clever. I think that calling him a coward is also apt because he has tied his fate to that of the city, right? And so he is really taking the easy way in like 5 different contexts. So
yeah, I'm still curious about Allomancy. Maybe not Mistborn at this point. It's still a possibility, but he just seems so fragile at this point now.
That's fair. I'm still stuck on the fact that you and Lindsay settled on being lurchers and like pulling yourself around everywhere. I'm still upset about it.
Why?
I think it's such a bad call. Anyway, it just popped into my head again.
He is wheelchair bound. It would be the perfect opportunity for him.
Yeah, it's fair.
Just wheel himself. I think I mentioned it even in that conversation with Lindsay, like sit in a wheelchair, or I think I might have been going with desk chair because that's what I would do. Just, I don't know, pull
desk chair yourself around
backwards.
everywhere. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Well,
okay.
What did you decide on again?
Push. I would much rather be a coin shot.
Yeah. I just like the idea of grabbing stuff.
I know.
From across the room.
Like, yes, knife, come at me.
Banana.
Yeah, right. Potassium.
Beer.
You know, the last Mistborn book in Era 2 is called The Lost Metal, right? So it's potassium. It's got to be potassium.
It's got to be.
It's got to be. Bananes for warmth. All right. So then, of course, after Elend leaves, she has this conversation with the other Venture brother, Zane, of whom is clearly the cause and reinforcement a lot of this old doubt that we've been talking about that has started to seep back into Vin's character over the last 2 weeks. He lies, of course, to her face about who sent the assassins, and Vin is skeptical, but ultimately seems to be buying into his gaslighting. And I really do think it's gaslighting in most contexts, not entirely, but there are bits of it that are. And when she says, of course, quietly under her breath in response, this time when I read, and I listened to it this week, and then I read it, and then I listened to it, I went, no, no, not of course, this is not of course, stop it, Vin.
Well, I don't know if I consider it gaslighting. There is the point at the end.
You're gaslighting me about gaslighting?
No, but
are you about to gaslight me about gaslighting?
I'm arguing definitions, I think.
Okay. All right.
Because like the point at the end where he's talking about Elend and like really leaning into the horror on his face, and straight up lies to her about that, and potentially, actually, we don't know how long that like lingered on his face, but he leans into it. But this is, I mean, it's a masterfully orchestrated lie, and it's not making her misremember anything. He's just offering a justification for everything that she saw because it all points to Set. So like I'm totally giving Zane the benefit of the doubt that this was like his plan the entire time to make it look like this. It's like I'm assuming that the Allomancers that she recognized in Set's sort of serving crew at that dinner were spies specifically like put there to spy on Set, and he was able to sort of leverage that and use it to his advantage because he knows that Vin saw them. Like everything he says is completely believable and justifiable based on that description. Just he knows it's not true. So like he's not making her misremember anything. Right?
There's one detail that he's pushing on with her that is like very clearly gaslighting though. I'm trying to remember what it is, but there's one thing where he's really trying to convince her of something.
I think it's the
explicitly
end.
Twisting the truth. I think it is with Elend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's with Elend. Yeah. That's the one that I think is the biggest indicator of gaslighting. The rest is definitely mostly manipulation. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's semantics. Either way, it sucks. but I don't know.
Yeah, the whole idea that the spy or that the Elementers were sets, and especially with the one that they can't remember the face of, and like there's that whole conversation that we kind of skipped over that happens between her and Elend about that one that she like popped his head off like a pimple. Yeah, the last. Yeah, they could refer to him as the last one. Guess what are you going to call him? Pulp for brains? Like,
I loved Ellen's response though. Like, well, we're going to have a hard time identifying that one.
Yeah. Yep. It was a pretty clever response and like funny, in a good way. I totally agree. I dug that a little bit, but yeah, I mean, Zane is, awful. He also convinces her of her like tumultuous inner monologue, right? By saying that he saw the same thing in Elend, that same purity snap, like we were talking about the actual gaslighting, right? He even explains that he isn't like Elend. He's tortured and strained in a very different way. Edgy, I'm an edgy boy, an emo boy. In the end, he parts with a very expensive gift, a bead of atium. What the fuck is Zane playing at, do you think?
So I've got some ideas. First of all, kind of curious that you'd use the term snap here when talking about Elend. And I'll get into that later, but during that fight with the Koloss, I think there are some oddities that he's experiencing that make me think he's inherited at least the same sort of tin eye trait of his father. But I don't know. Hints. We'll see. Have we heard anything while we're in Zane's perspective from God talking about Vin? I don't recall.
I think kill her, but yeah.
Was there? I thought it was always talking about Elend or Straff. When
I feel like you might be right, but I feel like there was God always seems to be convincing him to kill someone. Like that's mostly God's job.
That's all we've been shown.
Right.
But I could totally see God pushing him towards Vin. And I mean he calls it God, so I'm calling it God. Whatever this entity is, whatever this is. Maybe he is just fucking crazy. I don't know. But I don't know. I think there could be something there where like maybe this is part of the Hero of Ages. Maybe it's not a single person. Maybe it's a pair. Maybe it's a group of people that are like drawn to each other somehow. Or maybe there's a draw to the Hero of Ages in a particular way.
You're stuck.
I want to read more, Crossland. I want to get
that's
farther.
why we're doing this episode now, because then you can immediately jump in. Next week's reading is like 70 something pages, so you'll get a good chunk out. We only have like 3 or 4 more chapters here, or 3 or 4 more episodes.
Around page 500 now?
Yeah. I think we've got 12 episodes in this one, so I think we got 4 left in Well of Ascension. We are over 500.
Yeah, we're in like 5. Oh, the last chapter.
530 by the end?
Yeah, 540. 539.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So
like
into the thick one. Yeah.
3/4 of the way about?
Yeah, we're like right there, as my book would tell you, with the broken spine. It's just been re-breaking as I like read new sections, and it's so hard to like do anything with. Poor book. It didn't even go through that much. It's just thick. And its spine broke. It broke its back. So, yeah. Interesting comments on God and otherwise. I think that this is one that I have to just kind of raffo, because I don't know if there's so much that I can talk about plot-wise, but thematically, I think that God is pushing Zane for sure. I think that's kind of the whole thing, right? And that's where Zane tries to control him.
We've only ever seen situations explicitly where God says something. We've only seen situations where he pushes them away. So I don't know if there's anything that he actually like follows through on, but it's certainly not making him a mentally stable person. No,
definitely not. Definitely not doing well there. Not in that category.
I would like to just kind of temper myself a little bit, and I'm not trying to like make fun of people that hear things like fucking crazy was maybe a little bit harsh to say. So I apologize if there's any offense taken at that.
Yeah. I think that it's it's important to recognize that like Zane is dysregulated. Like he is heavily dysregulated, and it almost feels too apt to say something like Zane is insane. Like it feels like it's on the tip of your tongue, and you want to say it all the time because of the way that this man behaves. He's insane, but at the same time, we aren't being disparaging. We are intentionally trying to not be disparaging. We actually both have active mental health issues that we don't talk about on the show, but we're both diagnosed and on medications variously. So like we're not here to piss in anyone's tea. That's not the point. I don't know why you'd piss in someone's tea.
I mean, to be rude.
It would be rude. It would be rude. Yeah.
That'd be. Yeah. Yep. All that said,
cool.
We shall continue.
We shall continue. And here Vin remarks on the dresses, right? And how she can't be both as Tinwyl wanted her to be. We're back to this fucking thing one more time, just to reiterate.
I don't remember this. I don't remember that section. Like, I feel like it just goes straight from, like, she talks about recovering and becoming more like them, where she doesn't constantly...
She looks at a missing dress. There's a dress. It's the dress that she wore to the, it's the white dress. It's the, or rather, not the white dress, but it is the one that she was wearing that had all the Mistborn pockets and the specialization in it.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I felt like this was a comment, like this section she's talking about sort of becoming more comfortable and not worrying so much like she used to when she was on the streets, and like not worrying about somebody coming in and killing her in her sleep. Even after she had this conversation with Zane, who appeared in her bedroom while she was sleeping. Like, I feel like this is her moving more towards, I guess maybe not more towards the sort of nobility side, but definitely more towards a healthy, not street urchin side of her.
Yeah, okay, fair point. And I'm saying she's hoping to like put the street urchin in the past. We're seeing the street urchin come out now because of the insecurities that Zane is pushing on and kind of the questions raised by Elend in turn. But I'm thinking more comparing the nobility to the knife, right? Nobility to Mistborn, more or less. You could add that third angle to the triangle of this whole thing. But.
I feel like you and I are still on pretty opposite sides in this argument.
Yep.
Like, you seem to believe that they can't coexist, and I think that there's like the point is to blend them.
I agree. PJ, I agree with you. What I'm saying is that Vin thinks that they can't coexist, and the text supports that Vin thinks that they can't coexist.
Okay.
I think they can. I think they should. I'm saying Vin doesn't think it can work.
Okay.
I'm only speaking textually. I 100% think that the right way to do this is to blend the two, but she has submerged herself in one and does not believe that they can, and here is further reinforced to believe that they can't,
Okay.
That's more my point. I'm not, by no means am I on the side. I think I tried to make this clear in the last episode. I believe that Vin should blend the two. I think that her shattering her personality in these two different segments is doing more damage. I think the dress is arguably could have been a unifier, but she should also be able to just be a noble woman from time to time and wear like regular dresses. That was my point with the dress in particular.
Yeah. I guess my argument with that is that's not blending, that's segmenting.
Well, yeah, but you can also segment a little bit. Like, you have to acknowledge, she's not even acknowledging that she's a noble woman, right? Like, that's the thing. So the blend gets her to maybe do that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it pushes back there, but it'd be like, come on, like, just have a dress. Like, just enjoy,
Yeah. That's fair.
As a treat,
I
have a dress as a treat.
I want a Mistborn dress.
Somebody make PJ a Mistborn dress. He'll wear it. He will.
I would.
He'll put daggers in it and little vials of metal.
I'd drink them.
My parents bought me these, or didn't buy, I think they got them from somewhere, but they got these like really tiny little bottles with like caps on them. And I'm like, those would be perfect for, they're going to be perfect for like little tiny test simple syrups that I want to make and like do like little flavorings of, but also perfect for like little cocktail shots or things like that. And as an example, like an elementic metal shot, I'm thinking.
Yeah, just fill it with gallium.
No. Don't. Everybody at home, do not drink gallium. Whatever you do.
I don't think it's
liquefied
toxic.
Gallium.
I think you can drink it. Yeah. Not in like a lot, But it's not like mercury where like you'll get poisoned from it.
To me, everything is poison. Life is poison.
I might be speaking out of my ass. Do not like don't seek it out and like try to do this, but I don't think it's as toxic as mercury, and I think that like you can handle it like without problem, and I think it's not like a huge deal if you consume some of it.
PJ's been licking the gallium at work.
Yeah, we make water valves out of gallium. It's super effective.
It's super cost efficient. that nice soft metal.
That liquid metal.
Yeah. Oh, does it? I saw solidify temperature was fairly low, so I assume.
Yeah.
Probably very hard to actually make solid. Probably have to freeze it.
Yep.
Basically. Yeah.
Basically.
Anyway. Yeah. Cool. Random science facts with this is what we do sometimes. We just like derail and we're like, does this end up in the show? Does this not end up in the show? What do we do with that like little gallium exchange? Which is where we then sometimes cut them to the devil's cuts. But yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't publicly advocate for eating metal.
Eating metal. Probably not. Probably not.
I'm pretty sure it's fine though.
Yeah.
Because I looked it up because I wanted to do allomantic shots. That's why I looked it up. Well, I don't think it's like a huge issue.
Sure. So there are the like metal, the food grade like metal flourish things. Those exist, and they're pretty cheap. They're like little powder things. Definitely saw him on How to Drink a couple of times, and he recommended, and he's like, they're flavorless, so it doesn't really affect anything, and it just makes shit look cool.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's obviously Gold Flake and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's like they're often used in like purple cocktails and stuff like that to like make it look full, you know?
Okay.
To like really emphasize the color. It's a big thing on Instagram right now because it makes your cocktails look super, you know, zhuzhy, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Zhuzhes them like a magic zhuzh wand. Zhuzh. I'm just going to keep saying zhuzh. So I've been looking into that because I think that it would be fun to do like some interesting allomantic cocktails, especially with like guests and stuff.
That'd be pretty cool.
Wrap up episodes. So
it'd be.
We haven't announced our wrap up guest. We need to do that at the end of this episode. That's going to be exciting.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, secrets. Secrets. How would you make a silver colored cocktail or a gray colored cocktail?
So that's where this like. That's where that metal is held, like that sheen or whatever it's called, the food quality sheen is useful. But I think you'd probably do, oh God, what the fuck would you do? It'd have to be all clear liquors, and then you'd need to like, I don't know, man. I'm going to have to think about that more. I know How to Drink did a couple of like potion style cocktails, and one of them had like a floating bead of metal in it, but it was something else that was, I'll have to go back through those and find it because I've thought about this a little bit. There's got to be a way to fake it, you know? Yeah. But I feel like you could make like a clear solution, right? Like a clear solution cocktail, vodka based probably, or tequila, like a Blanco. But I think you'd go vodka because you might want to add like other spirits like maraschino, for instance, or like something else to give it, you know, a little bit more complex flavor. And then some of that metal sheen stuff would kind of run through and look really weird. And it's generally gray colored. You can get specific colors, but
okay,
that's probably a way to do it. But
yeah, I don't know.
This has been Cocktail Crafting with PJ and Cross. Yeah, that's how I've been thinking about it though lately.
Okay, we'll have to get that.
So I have 10 of those little bottles, which is why I'm thinking I could even do like one for each metal, which could be interesting. Well, you know, not
most of them.
Yeah, right.
All right, should we get back into it?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. You want to be done? We could just call it there. So again, we see Orsor and discuss the fact that he didn't violate the contract, as well as his new doggy bones that he's wearing, the new fur. He also elaborates a bit on contra culture and what he would face if he broke the contract. Exposing it as something that is more of kind of like a cultural touchstone and less of a magical contract, as you suspected. So I will be taking that drink kind of at the end here. Actually, I'm just going to take it right now because I don't think that was codified in a prediction, but okay. Cheers, good work. However, the punishment is proven to be very severe. So this cultural touchstone, cultural contract is one that carries a heavy punishment.
Yeah, so it's severe, but at the same time, it sounds like he would just go turn himself in. So I don't understand that quite so much. Maybe it's more severe if he has to be chased down, something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he didn't break the contract. Very explicitly did not break the contract. But he cites that most of his brethren would probably see it that way. They'd probably see it as breaking the contract. And he risked breaking it. Like, the outcome is what made him not break it, basically. And he's totally lawyering himself around the contract, which, I mean, it's pretty cool to have this progression and see, like, he is solidly moving, like, the relationship forward with Vin, and really kind of gives some more weight to what he does for her. So kind of shifts the perspective a little bit in that sense on, like, how much he's actually risking, and makes it seem a lot more significant every time he does something for her.
Yeah. I love that Ursur shows all this growth, right? And that his risk ultimately saves her life. Like, it ultimately is to protect her, and he is more than willing to have done what he did despite the risk, it seems. And as such, he continues to, throughout this chapter, share even more about Khandra culture, which just ends up being something that we'll definitely talk about in a second. But yeah, I mean, I think Ursur is solidly in Vin's camp at this point, despite saying effectively that he's never felt like he's never had this kind of connection or relationship with a master before in the same way, or someone who's held his contract. So this is effectively a very different relationship.
It is.
Now.
Yeah.
She even, like, she stands up for him to Elend a little bit, right? Yeah. He's not in the room at the time, but yeah.
Not at this point, but
right.
Previously, like, she doesn't give in to what Elend is saying. Mm-hmm. She doesn't quite stand up for him, I think, but
yeah, she's injured, so she's laying down the whole time.
Well, fuck you. No, she doesn't go to bat for him.
Yeah. Right.
But she does question Elend's reasoning and comments, which, good on her.
Yeah.
Stand up for these pseudo-immortal shapeshifty fucks.
You pseudo-immortal shapeshifty fuck you. Let me scritch behind your ear. I thought you'd giggle at my use of doggy bones. I'm glad I got the reaction that I wanted.
Doggy bones.
I was like, this is too perfect as I was going through. I was like, he's wearing new doggy bones. And then I was like, oh, doggy bones is kind of a multifaceted context. Because he has to eat them to become them.
Does he have to eat the bones in the form that he's previously in, or does he have to, like, go outside of...
I think he sheds the previous form and then adopts the new one. Because I think he leaves the previous bones behind.
She sees him eat Kelsier's bones, right?
I don't think she sees him eat Kelsier's bones.
She sees him eat Ursur's bones. Or the Wolfhound's bones.
Yeah. Yep.
So she knows what his, like, naked form looks like then. I
think he was still, like, a person at the time. I think she was asked to leave when he did that.
Okay.
When he was doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to know what he looks like.
Yeah. Maybe eventually.
I want to know what he looks like under the skin.
under that fur. Under all that good boy fur. Yeah.
Are they humanoid? I don't even know.
I don't know. Are they a blob? Are they?
Probably.
I'd
I assume they're humanoid because of how, like, perturbed he was to, like, be in a dog body instead of a human body.
You know, like Tangela, the weird spaghetti noodle Pokemon?
What?
Hey, you've seen Tangela, right?
Oh, I think so.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I'm gonna send it in the channel. If you don't know, maybe they're like that. You know. Can't scooch that guy behind his ears.
Yeah. Which one's his ear?
I don't think he has ears. I think he's just noodles. Anyway. All right. So We get even more on Khandra culture here. The Lord Ruler referred to as Father, and kind of their general origin story as well, which is really fun. Again, this is something that he kind of freely offers up with like just the smallest of push from Vin being like, tell me more. And he's like, okay, I'll tell you more now. Versus before she had to like really pull teeth to kind of get here. Does this inform anything for you relating to the larger lore of the world? How do you feel about this section? I love it. Let me just preface. I fucking adore this little meaty bit.
I thought it was super illuminating. Yeah. What it makes me the most curious about is specifically because he talks about her allomancy in general and how it's like abnormal. I wonder if other Mistborn would be able to use Duralumin at all, or if that's something unique to Vin.
I'm not so much talking about the push yet, because that happens really at the end.
Okay.
Here. I'm thinking more about just the culture in general.
Okay.
I definitely want to talk about the push and the powerful allomancy and kind of that stuff. Yeah. I just want to focus on the cultural thing before we get to that like shocking end of the chapter.
Yeah, that's fair.
Duralumin. But
so there is a comment that he like about how old he is, and he says he doesn't remember the Ascension.
Yeah.
Which to me that feels kind of careful in that maybe his consciousness is younger than his body is. Like maybe his body was around during the Ascension. Maybe I'm putting too much weight into what he said there and like his wording. But yeah, that's kind of where my head went on that comment. I'm like, how old are these? Do they have Khandra children ever? Like, do they procreate? Were they all created and there's like different consciousnesses that are put into the same bodies? I don't know. Gears are turning, Crossland. Gears are turning.
Gears are a turning. Cool. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that you're thinking about this and kind of fixating on it. I do want to talk now about Duralumin. I just want to make sure we got in kind of the like cultural bits. Mm-hmm. But there's talk of the Lord Ruler and the founding, and we really end this chapter with a reveal that the Khandra can be affected by powerful allomancy, and as he claims, or Sur claims about Vin, she is more like the allomancers of old and has abilities that she shouldn't have. Meaning, like you were saying, kind of with Duralumin, if you want to hop in there with thoughts.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, in case you cut that out.
I will, because fuck you.
Yeah, well.
I'm just kidding.
It makes me wonder if Duralumin is a metal that can be used by other allomancers, or by other Mistborn in general. There's nothing that really points to the idea that they can't, considering it is like a metal ingested in the same way. She just seems to have more abilities in... Well, also, they fear Mistborn, specifically. So it's probably that all Mistborn have this ability. Okay. Talk myself out of that sort of thought process. What I hope for this is that after she pushes on... Or after she, like... Was it soothing? I think it was soothing with Duralumin. I'm hoping that this understanding that she can do things that she shouldn't be able to do will prompt her to open up more to Ursur about piercing copper clouds, for example. And maybe he has more information of what she might be able to do that she's not aware of, based on like what the allomancers of old were able to do. That's my hope, is that like there's going to be a dialogue between the two and sort of brainstorm session of how they can use this to their advantage.
How'd you feel about his yelp? His like cry? He got pushed on.
It just made me think of the time I stepped on my dog's tail.
Oh, you somehow made it worse.
Well, that's what it was, like a guttural yelp. I can't remember the term used, but yeah.
Yeah.
Poor guys.
Poor
puppy.
Poor boy. Poor puppy. Poor puppo. So sad.
So the other thing.
Yeah.
What's going to happen now that clearly it's a different wolfhound that's going to be like perfectly trained from the jump, which apparently they're pretty notoriously difficult to train because they're fucking monsters. So she's just going to have this second perfectly trained wolfhound. I'm wondering if she's going to have to open up to the crew, or at least to like some core members about it, and divulge the information. of those that she trusts.
Yeah.
But
Good
maybe
questions.
it's too late now. Maybe it's like maybe she doesn't want to share that information because it'll like retroactively feel like a breach of trust that she had a spy with her the entire time through all those conversations.
Yeah.
I don't know. Though she never used it to spy. It was always with her. It wasn't like the Wolfhound was hanging out with the crew while she was away to like hear what they're talking about without her around. So maybe that's not a big deal. Yeah.
Okay. With that, we move into chapter 41. We've got our logbook here. It's really short, so it's in the document. After that, I began to see other problems. Yep. Okay, Quan. Me too. Me too, dude. Yeah, I get it. I see other problems. I see other problems all the time. What?
This one is relevant. This one's very relevant to this chapter.
Okay. Yeah, no, go continue.
No, specifically about like finding problems in the text that they're reading.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not more complicated than that.
Yeah, no, I
that's
agree.
A connection I had. If you're waiting for me to say more.
That's literally all it is. You're right. Good call. This is like literally 8 words. So it's not like we could talk long about 8 words without more context. Damn it, Branderson. You could have helped us out here. So we start this chapter, though, with Sazed and Tynwald discussing the notes of Elend and Quan. Variously, they break down questions that they have of the fears that Quan held and their innate contradictions of the overly rational thought process he had about Elend reaching the Well of Ascension. What do you make of their breakdown of Quan? Do you feel like they're doing a better job than you are?
No.
Wow.
No, I think I got it unlocked. No, but there is one point that I'm kind of frustrated doesn't come up at all. And I have a justification, but I don't have that much of a justification for it.
Sure.
Specifically regarding some knowledge that Sazed has and how Vin is exhibiting some of the same traits as Elend talks about, like seeing that entity in the mist and stuff like that. So he doesn't even bring that up in the slightest. True. Which seems odd to me, but maybe he doesn't want to betray Vin's trust with the confidential information. Like, just kind of, it's not like explicitly confidential, but she spoke to him behind closed doors, and I don't know. And regardless, we're in Sazed's perspective, I think, here. Yep. And he doesn't even think about it. Like, it doesn't cross his mind. Like, that seems like something he would think about and maybe not mention, but we don't even see that.
So what's your justification? Is your justification that he doesn't want to break the trust?
Yeah, that was the justification, but then I thought about the perspective thing. Like, we're in his mind. True. So he doesn't even think about it.
I have a secondary justification here that I'll give you from my perspective. He doesn't want to be a false announcer like he thinks Quan is.
Fair.
Right? So I think that he is placing that out of his mind as far as he can, because he does not want to be a new, proclaimer of a religion that he barely understands, saying that someone is the hero of ages without really knowing.
Yeah. It's like this whole thing is making me feel like he wasn't a false announcer, though. He just had reservations externally from what we already know. That's like making him present himself like he's second guessing himself.
Sure.
Like it's like several layers of deception. I feel like, and it's really complicated and convoluted to like speak about and try to explain succinctly. But it feels like this is like a false apology for something nefarious that he's planning with Rashek to go against the hero of ages.
Yeah. And I get that for sure. I just wanted to give that as a rationale for why I think Sazed is avoiding it. And
I think that you might see that in his mind, though, wouldn't you?
I think he's trying to push that so far out of his head because he doesn't want it to consume all of his thoughts. Because he can clearly see the fact that it consumed Quan's entire mind and existence trying to connect dots that weren't there. And so I think he's like holding that one in reserve, like, Okay, maybe if this is the only piece of the puzzle we're missing, I'll consider it, but I am not considering it on the front end of the puzzle.
Okay. I can get behind
It looks
that.
like it could be a part of the pile, but you think it might have been left out from your previous puzzle, you know?
I mean, I don't know about you. I just put all my puzzle pieces in one box and try to build them all at once.
I mean, yeah, all my puzzles are like 48 pieces, so yeah, I mean, I just all put them in one box too. I do.
This one's a giant
they're like that big
and has like a handle on it.
Yes,
that one's just a cube.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I
I'm
think
supposed
I
to
can
put them
keep
in
apart.
shapes, you know? Like, I think there's supposed to be like a grid thing that you like drop them in. I don't know. I'm pretty easy to entertain. I don't think I've told this story before, but it's a fun one. So my dad thought I was dumb when I was little.
Me too. I thought you were dumb.
Well, this was littler than that.
I'm fucking with you.
Yeah, I know. But my dad thought I was dumb when I was little because he would like show me a ring and tell me what color it was, and I would just say blue or like purple, and like I would occasionally switch it up, but I was always wrong because I couldn't see color. And so he was like, "Oh crap, my kid is stupid." So he bought easier toys.
Is your dad colorblind at all?
No, my grandpa is though on my mom's side, which is how that would flow. So yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. I lose it every time he tells that story.
That's hilarious.
It is so funny. But in particular, it was that stacker thing. You know, like it's got like so flat base, and then it kind of looks like a wall-mounted dildo if we want to get into it. But you stack like the little circles, the rings, on top. Yeah, all right. We're going extreme with comparisons. You stack the different rings, and they can only go in a specific order. Here we are. Now we're here. I already said it. Can't take it back. So, point being, you stack those little like rings on them, right? And they're different colors, and the colors are supposed to indicate the order because they go in the order of the rainbow, right? That's kind of the idea, is to like teach you not only the order of the rings, but then the colors across the rainbow. And that went so well. I would always stack the wrong one to turn it into like a weight. Like pick it up in the middle. Yeah, I'm dumb. Okay, anyway, point being, tangent aside, how'd we get here?
I don't remember.
I don't fucking remember. I was laughing too hard. So, all right. There's... Gotta reset real quick. There's a tension as they find themselves... Fuck, you can't start laughing. I'm half breaking. You can't break when I half break. All right, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back to this. There's a tension as they find themselves unable to solve the problem of Quan and the rubbing. Every time I say the rubbing, I'm just like, I giggle a little bit to myself. Anyway, how do they handle the changes to a piece of historical text when the city around them is in impending peril from so many different sides? Tyndall states, and I really love this quote, "I have studied these things, Sazed. I know what happens when a conqueror takes a city. People will die, many people." And Sazed feels a chill crawl down his spine.
There's something just... It feels different when somebody who's spent their entire lives like dedicated to understanding how things rise and fall, how cities rise and fall, how governments work like this, saying that they're fucking doomed. Like it's so unsettling. It's
pretty bad to have someone who studies this shit to be like, yeah, this is really bad.
Yep. But you know, if
that's like having a doctor tell you, yeah, no, you've got like 6 months. Very frankly.
Yep. I was going to say, if we're taking cues from like modern society right now, people just kind of ignore any sort of expert opinion. And, you know, apparently they're entitled to that opinion.
Apparently. Yeah. It's a fair point to bring up. Yeah. Good call. Good call there. Making it relevant without being direct. We love it. So the two keepers, of course, together settle and continue to pore over their studies, closing their eyes and searching for something that might have a chance of saving them all again. I love imagining them closing their eyes and like dumping the contents of the metal in their metal mines. Like they flip up the lid on their head and like dump. But obviously that's not how it happens. But, you know, and like a robot going through and reading its mind in like very old like 90s hacker movie style where they're like combing through the internet, but it's, you know, thoughts and indexes, and I don't know. It's a fun mental image.
Yeah, it's such a unique thing that Branderson built into Farakmi in general. Like it's subtle. I feel like it's more direct here, but in passages past, it was a lot more subtle. And I don't know. I find it really interesting. Found it really cool. Again, though, and you brought up a great justification, but this feels like a point where Sazed could have brought up the comparisons between Vin and Elendi, because they're talking about dire circumstances and like racking their brains for something relevant and something helpful. Or not their brains, they're copper mines, but copper? Metal?
These are copper mines, yeah.
Copper mines.
They're all metal mines, but this is a copper mine, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like now's the time to make jumps. And
yeah, right. I don't know. Take the leap. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can agree. Maybe we aren't quite panicked enough yet. Maybe we need to panic a little bit more.
It's hard
when the army's
not
at the door, like when they're like knocking on the door, like they're like, please let me in, but with like swords and stuff.
Do you think that's how they gain entrance to a city, Crossland?
That's how I gain entrance anywhere. Do you not like, why wouldn't they? That's how I do it.
Please let me in.
Please let me in. It's like DoorDash, right? Like they send you a photo. I'm just kidding. Knock on your door and send you a photo.
Just a photo of a sword like stuck in the door.
We have arrived. Your invasion has arrived. Okay, so we switch to Elend here, wishing that he could have done more for his people. He even stoops as low to compare himself and humble himself by saying that the Lord Ruler has done better for his people than he did. But he quickly realizes that it isn't true and kind of kills that kind of negative self-talk within him. But God, can you blame him for like having that negative self-talk at all in these moments? He's got armies facing him down on all sides. It's like...
Yeah, I mean, the armies are a huge deal, but he's taking the initiative of the people, He's doing what he has to for the people. Maybe that's not this point, is it? When he's like...
No, that's later. Yeah, not quite there. Okay. Yeah. This is him moping, right? He's moping around on the top.
Yeah.
And like Demu pulls him inside because he's like, it's not good for people to see you moping. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but he does stand up for himself pretty well.
Right.
Is this the point where Tindwyl tests him? Or is that later too?
That's later too. Yeah, okay. I think he walks in. It's when he walks in, which is just a little bit later. I do actually have that quote in the notes because I find it fucking hilarious. So, yeah, that's a little bit later. This is like just beginning when we switch, and he has these like massive self-doubts, and he also starts to even like, and we can move on from like the negative self-talk he has there because we get more of it later.
What?
Pulled back inside by Demu. Well, I mean, when he's thinking about Vin, like... That's even more negative self-talk.
That was a sarcastic what?
Oh, yeah. What? Are people having negative self-talk? How weird. But Elend is pulled back inside by Demu and says that he plans on attending meetings still, the meetings with the Church of the Survivor, even after his deposition. This really reinforces that morally, like, uproariness that he has, that we know Elend for. Always, kind of doing what he says no matter what, following through consistently without fail, especially if and when it leads to his failures directly.
I mean, this is that moral paladin. You keep bringing it up, so I'm going to keep bringing it up, I think. But the idea of the moral paladin, and the people recognize that. And I don't know. It's upsetting that the rest of the leadership doesn't act in this way. Like, yeah, they could be doing something. But instead, most of them are worrying about the titles that can be bestowed upon them and making sure that that's secured. But I don't know what the SCA leadership is doing. Like the 8 SCA assemblymen. Do they ever talk about that?
What they're doing now?
Yeah. Because they've been promised titles as well. But are they working with Elend?
He's kind of lone wolfing it, I think, at this point. He's not really doing... Yeah,
but
he's not he's not a great collaborator. That Elend, he actually is a good collaborator, but
I mean, he kind of, I don't know. Yeah,
if he's the QB, he he's
I don't know enough about
pretty
sports,
good at giving the ball to. Yeah, I know he's pretty good at giving the ball to the other team.
Fuck.
I don't know why I brought a sports metaphor into this.
You're not good at sports either.
Yep, here we are. Now we're here,
but. It's such an upstanding move, I think. And unexpected even from Demu. Like, you would think the church would want him to follow through anyway. And they seem surprised, or Demu seems surprised by it, and he kind of feels like a leader, at least in the sect that he was talking to, or in like the branch that he was talking to.
Yeah.
And seems genuinely surprised that Elend's like planning on still continuing to attend and join. So, I don't know. I love his conviction in that.
I think it's great that he is convicted, right? This is something that he needs to follow through on, especially because it's it would feel really shitty from a writing perspective as well, like from an authorial perspective, to be like, okay, I'm going to pull on this and I'm going to do this thing, and then to kind of just like drop that thread entirely. It's great that Elend, because of his character, is going to follow through on something like this. Mm-hmm. I can see an inferior writer character, a different character, making a very different decision to be like, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm going to ditch that and like never talk about it ever again.
Yeah. I think he genuinely believes in it too, though. Doesn't believe in like the mysticism of it, or like the not religiosity, but not the supernatural aspect of it.
Sure.
God, can we call it supernatural even at this point? Because Allomancy's kind of supernatural.
Allomancy is a magic system, so sure. I mean, you could call it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is.
It is natural on Scadrial, so.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I don't think he believes in that part of it, but I think he truly is, like, he believes in what Kelsier was fighting for. Maybe to a more refined state and extent, but I don't think there's anything that strictly conflicts with Kelsier's point of view other than, like, kill all the noblemen.
Kill them all, including myself. Yeah. That's a fair point. I think that a lot of, even the ideology of the Church of the Survivor doesn't so closely adhere to the things that Kelsier was kind of advocating for necessarily. Like it is there, and it does advocate in broad terms kind of tenets of what he believed, but it is not so hyper specific as to, you know, get all that minutiae in about all of his different individual beliefs. It's that general picture that everyone saw when the ghost of Kelsier was running around explaining and really kind of founding the church in the end, more or less.
Right.
Yeah. So nothing else? Good? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm good on that one.
Yeah, cool. I really enjoy that while Vin is having her issues with their relationship, Elend is also having his own, but driven completely by his perception of her. She's this force of nature, and he's such a failure that he couldn't even hold on to the throne she gave him at the end of the last book. He questions that love as such, but it's not as severe as Vin's is on herself, of course, because she has all of this negative talk, you know, kind of submerged. She's submerged in it her entire life and doesn't carry that exact same baggage. So I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on Elend and his self-talk.
So this is kind of the point I was trying to make before, or I think I touched on it a little bit before, because he comes across as kind of naive about like what she cares about and why she's acting the way that she is, since all that's changed is the fact that he got deposed, or that he didn't win the crown back. And going on that thread, maybe it isn't naive at all. Like, since we're in his head, I feel like he would, if it was such a big deal, him seeing her like brutally fucking murder that dude, that would come up. And since it's not, maybe he's not actually putting that much weight into it. Maybe that flinch wasn't actually that significant. And like, it's going to take some very direct conversation between the two of them to resolve this. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Frankly, like, I think they both have their own insecurities about things, especially when it comes to each other at this point, that I think it's going to be sort of the Friends problem or the Seinfeld problem of, man, just being able to communicate would really solve all these problems, huh?
Yeah. If everyone was a good communicator, we would have none of these issues.
Well, or
of which I think Elend's a pretty
specifically, like, that is in reference to, like, if they all had cell phones, like, none of these shows would happen. Like, none of
very true.
None of these episodes make sense if they can all just text each other.
Right.
So it's not the same, but if they just communicate, like, this can get resolved pretty quickly, but they're not going to. And it's gonna be a drain on both of them.
Yeah. That's a fair point. And it is, the fact that these are happening simultaneously, I think, is another aspect too, right? So they're kind of naturally pushing each other away, but for very different reasons. Not pushing each other away even, but like internalizing these things. Vin thinks it's because of the horror. Elend's doing it because of, his... What does he bring to the relationship? He doesn't bring anything. He lost the fucking crown that she gave him,
That's a kind of heartbreaking way to put it, huh?
Yeah.
Like, seeing it as a gift from Vin. I think Vin would resent that, first of all.
Yeah, definitely.
And, like, I don't know, man.
It's a hard thing to parse.
Yeah, it is. It's really complicated.
I feel that. All right. So I want to start with this quote because I fucking love this quote. It's one of my favorites in the novel. He knocked quietly and got no response. Finally, he poked his head in. Sazed and Tindwyl sat quietly before a desk piled high with scraps of paper and ledgers. They both sat staring, as if at nothing, their eyes bearing the glazed-over look of someone who had been stunned. Sazed's hand rested on the table. Tindwyl's rested on top of it. And like, okay, very cute gesture. Like, it's very cute. But I love how, like, accurately and acutely this, like, describes their creepy robot stares when they're poring over their metal mines. Because that's exactly how I imagine it. Like, just go, eyes rolling back and be like, whoa. Just shaking as they... But, I mean, obviously they're not shaking, Yeah.
Yeah. It is, like, I think of it as kind of creepy. Straight up. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, very cute. Very cute.
By cute, I mean the hand thing. I mean, the hand thing is cute. Yeah.
No, I know, exactly. Yeah. But, man, imagine just walking into that as Elend is right now. Like, if you didn't know about their copper mines, what would you think?
Kandra, get him. Just kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But super cool. Super cool.
Yeah. I really just like that portrayal. I don't know. It just gets me each time. And then, I mean, ultimately we get like, right, almost immediately after this, when they kind of like wake up and spring out of it, we get the insult from Tindwyl.
That's this point.
Like,
okay.
Like, just like immediately. And he's like, and he just disarms it and deflects it while Sazed's like trying to stand up for him. And he's like, no, I got this. It's a good moment of character growth. And it's like, okay, Tindwyl didn't mean it. She was just, well, maybe she did mean it. I don't know. It's so hard to read Tindwyl in that way. It's like, did you mean it? Or were you just trying to push my buttons so that you elicit a reaction?
Yeah, she's pretty sneaky. This is kind of a fun side of the character to explore now. Mm-hmm. Understanding that what she does with Elend is, for lack of a better term, a character that she's putting on, being more of a hard ass. Right. And when he calls her out on it, and like he's like, "Yeah, I know that's a test." I love her little shrug. Like, she just kind of shrugs and ends the exchange. But I do appreciate how he's able to justify her staying. And not choosing sides, as she sort of comments about. And by basically stating, like, I'm not king anymore, and just a man seeking truth, or something like that. I think that's pretty close to the quote. That thought process by Tindwyl, though, that she's, like, choosing sides, kind of seems ridiculous, because anybody that's, like, opposing them right now would be putting the Ska into subjugation again, clearly, like... That's been explicitly mentioned
by two different leaders, three different people if you include Penrod.
Yeah. So either way, like that's going to happen. I think it's only fair to assume that the Terracemen, like the Terrace people, would be going back into servitude as well.
Likely, I think they might have to be reconquered, but I think you're right. Yeah.
So for that reason, I don't understand why it'd be a problem to like ally themselves with Elend.
But, yeah, I think it's because it's not so strictly stated by the Synod, right?
Yeah, that's fair. So either way, Tindwyl's kind of doing her own lawyering of the situation and going against what she's supposed to do without actually like breaking any rules. So kind of cool, kind of fun.
Cool. You're kind of fun. I really love Sazed's affirmation of Elend's decision here, and I think that it's a fantastic moment to kind of opine about the reality of the decision that Elend has made. This
Just
isn't
pause
one.
real quick. Can you define opine for me?
It's the other form of opinion. It's the same thing. It's like to talk about.
So,
right?
like a
to share
verb
opinions
of
on.
opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same idea. So like when Pierce Brown, the reason that I put this in is it was like a Pierce Brown Easter egg for people who listen and have also read Pierce Brown's tweet about like my editor has opined and now I'm on round 2. So
Gotcha.
I was just using it as a sentence to be funny.
Well, sorry to throw off your flow.
No, it's cool. It's kind of funny. But yeah, so the idea that it's an opinion, right? So I think that it's a time for us to take, and we can reflect on this a little bit, on the decision that Elend made. This isn't one that you ever really get to see in classical fantasy novels. This is something that's very different. The good guy paladin always wins the political stuff and typically struggles with the other things, like killing the dragon, or, you know, there's some other conflict that gets in the way of saving the maiden in, you know, like really old classical fantasy. So this is kind of an inversion in a lot of ways of that trope. And we end up inside of this little section getting to interrogate that idea and what it means to be a good person versus a good leader, and whether it ever makes sense to, you know, compromise yourself to be one or the other.
Yeah. So this is where that sort of providence / God / religion conversation comes in with Sazed, right?
Yeah. I believe it's kind of the same note.
Yeah. We learned that Sazed's been offering like religions to Elend like he did for Kelsier. I think he said half dozen of them or something, which is, I don't know. We don't see that at all, but it's kind of, it brings more solidity to the idea that Sazed respects him in the same way that he respected Kelsier. So
yeah,
I don't know. It would have been easy to guess that and assume that, but at least that's a little bit more concrete. He kind of implies that God is the one bestowing this moral sense upon Elend and showing him what's right. And now we keep kind of pressing on this moral paladin thing. And it gives a little bit more structure to that. If we lean into the idea that it's a providence, like a sort of divine intervention, a divine
numb tongue.
If it's like a divine intervention to sort of push him in this direction and like tell him what's actually right and what's not, I don't buy that necessarily, but
yeah, I think you're giving it a lot more loft than I think Sazed is trying to give it, if that makes sense. I think Sazed is trying to say that I do. So here's what I would say in conversation with what Sazed is kind of pointing to. He's kind of saying that every being has a divine will, right? Like every being has a divine like direction or instrumentation provided by God, right?
Okay.
And so it's it's less that it's like Elend's job and responsibility. It's more like you have a moral character and you should center yourself around that moral character, and that was given to you, you know, by God in base form. I think that's what I think that was my interpretation at the very least, but
no, that makes complete sense. And I think that you're right.
It still fits the moral. It still fits the rest of what you're saying. I just think it's less lofty.
Yeah, I was extrapolating a little bit more.
Yeah.
Saying it was a direct intervention rather than just kind of his nature in general.
Yeah.
So, yep. Good point.
Yeah.
But either way, it would give more structure to that moral paladin sort of idea if he decides to embrace it.
Yeah, and I think he is. I think that's kind of what we see to some degree.
I don't think he is. I think he pushes against it entirely.
I think we've got something to talk about in the next chapter for sure, including stabbing a friend, mostly stabbing a friend, and maybe murdering a creature. But there's some weird shit going on with Elend right in this moment. But I think I mostly stand on Sazed's analysis of Elend up until this point, which is to say, you know, he's consistently doing the right thing for the right reasons, and that he should not change what he has done, and that maybe good men aren't going to be kings, and maybe that's the reality, or maybe you're not meant to be a king. It's kind of that's an interpretation of where this spins, but
yeah. But at the same time, you kind of get a contradiction to that when talking about like what it means to be kingly.
Yeah.
in a little bit. I think that's like the next section, right?
Right. And that's literally what happens right here. And that's what leads him to this sort of turnaround, right? So Elend comes to realize it seems by the end of this chapter and after this kind of confrontation that being a king isn't just a title bestowed upon you by others, but kingliness is earned by the actions you take. And I'm extrapolating a bit there from what's actually said, right? But that is the conclusion that Elend's character seems to draw, because he becomes a man of action in that moment as opposed to a man of words. Like, this is that same flip where it's like, okay, I got to do things to be what I am. With Elend, we've got a very different king on the table.
Tindwyl through the
king of
diamonds,
What was that?
Through the end of this chapter, Tindwyl still seems kind of stuck on the idea that he gave up his titles, or he allowed his titles to be lost. But at the same time, kind of mentions that, like, she continues to give him advice on like what to do and what makes somebody kingly. Mm-hmm. Kind of like you mentioned. She regards trust as one of the big points, which he super takes to heart. And I loved the ending to this section. Like, after that, that's kind of like ringing in his ears a little bit. And he walks to his closet and like opens it up to the king uniform that he's been wearing. I don't know what to make of it. It's motivation, but it's also belittlement to a little bit of an extent.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just want to look at it real quick. I love that Elend also reflects and says, I won't continue to fret and worry. Tindwyl taught me better than that, even if she never really understood me. Like, there's a lot of that where it's like, Elend is now becoming a combination of the influence of his sort of study and the teachings of Tindwyl, right? And so maybe he is still a moral paladin by all means, beginnings, whatever. But he is starting to change and realize that he doesn't need to just take the holistic advice from Tindwyl. Sazed's point here, I think, drives home the fact that I need to be me, but I can inform me with other things. I can inform me with other information and data. And so I think he's pulling in, this is finally his realization of, okay, I need to be this man that I am, that God divined, that created me, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm that man. And I can add and inform that with other information. I can inform that with Tindwyl's opinion and blend it together into what I know I am.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still kind of smitten, maybe isn't the right term, but kind of taken by the character that Tindwyl puts on. How she's so quick to snap into that sort of tough guy attitude with Elend, and snap out of it when he calls her out. It's a little out of place to say that right here, but I don't know. I'm still thinking. No, I mean,
I'm also taken with that. I really enjoy this week's reading. It's very short. We're going our average episode length because it's so good. Because
there's a lot that happens.
Deep. Yeah, and it's very deep on Elend. Like, we really get to talk and expose a lot of Elend's character here, and the Khandra and otherwise. So this is really kind of our like, we're starting to hit that rising action point before we'll enter a climax that'll take 4 weeks to get through.
Fair.
With that, we move in. Any other thoughts on this chapter before I move on?
I don't think so.
Cool.
I think we covered it pretty well.
Awesome. With that, we move into chapter 42 here. We start with the logbook, of course, as always. So here we have, some of you may know of my fabled memory. It is true. I need not a ferrochemist's metal mind to memorize a sheet of words in an instant. Okay, so Quan has an eidetic memory.
Yeah.
Do you have any... Go ahead. Sorry.
No. It's new. That's different. And...
kind of braggy,
super braggy. I wonder if it's hyperbolic. I think, like, I'd go as far to say, like, maybe photographic memory, and in an instant is just when I read it, I remember it, but who knows at this point with this fucking guy.
Your frustration with Quan growing over the book is exactly how I felt. I was like, what the fuck does this mean? What the fuck does any of this mean? In my first pass. Yeah.
I still don't think all of these are in the same tome.
The same rubbing, you mean?
Yeah. I don't know, though. There are just some that... This one feels fine. No, this one seems weird. This one seems weird, too.
He's
to have
bragging
on something that he's hastily trying to put together with a limited amount of space.
One could argue that the reason that he's saying this is because he's saying that I have an unmistakable memory, and so take these words as what happened.
Yeah, that's fair. But, I mean, just because he remembers everything properly doesn't mean he has to present the truth.
Yeah, and it also doesn't mean that, he's not just PJ's of the opinion that we're being lied to actively here, I see.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, to me, it feels very braggadocious, and I'm like, okay, where's this going, Quan? Like, where are we going? We know that your mind meanders, and that you've said this before, that you get off topic and get tangential. Let's get somewhere with this, as it were. Cool. So we move back to Elend, right? And he's making a plan to save as many of the Ska as he can, as they're freezing in their stone houses that were previously like little venture houses that people lived in underneath them, and helping them move into kind of the warmer old Ska tenement buildings. He runs into Goridel, the guard that Vin spared at the end of the last book, who ended up being critical to saving her life, who gives him a report. While most of the furniture is gone from all of these different places, there's plenty of wood left still that could help save citizens of Luthadel from the cold. An important thing here, Elend's doing kingly shit without being a king anymore.
Yeah. There's that. Like, there's a lot of good that's here, and I'm not going to say something bad, but something different here is he's beginning to divorce himself from the idea that everything that the Lord Ruler did was bad, inherently. Or at least he's not rejecting everything the Lord Ruler did simply because the Lord Ruler did it. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
I think that's a great way of putting it.
So he's recognizing that, hey, the way that the Ska lived before was super efficient, and we need to get really lean. Let's make sure that if people don't want to live, or if people don't want to freeze, try to convince them to leave these like giant stone mansions that are hard to heat. So obviously the Lord Ruler wasn't hurting for coin. Like, he wasn't strapped for cash or anything like that. But he didn't want to spend extra, Yeah. And I guess it wasn't even necessarily the Lord Ruler himself, but the lords that ruled over the Ska didn't want to spend extra money on the Ska, so they were as efficient as possible in keeping them alive. And turns out that's pretty helpful when you're trying to stretch a buck as a kingdom. And, like, keep all your people
when you're under siege
safe.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of a perfect way to make sure your resources are being used in the most efficient way. So I thought that was a really cool shift in like looking at the Lord Ruler and what positives can come from that regime.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's also, at the beginning of the last chapter too, this is a nice little mirror. He's like, the Lord Ruler held on to his kingdom better than I did. Like, the Lord Ruler was a piece of shit garbage man, and he did a much better job than I did. And so, like you said, this is that spinning this interpretation of, okay, well, maybe there was a reason and rationale to some of these things, and maybe I can start to extrapolate that and apply, some lessons. Again, I think he's finally starting to pull in a lot of these other things, external things that he hasn't chosen to like acknowledge before, versus texts that he specifically sought out. Like, Elend was very much a self-taught man. It was just like, what I read was the holy book, and there's nothing else, and there can be nothing else. And now he's like, okay, let me think about these teaching and ideologies. And it really took Tindwyl, I think, to break him of that.
Yeah, Tindwyl is absolutely paramount in that. I don't think there's any way that he gets to this position without Tindwyl. And I'm really curious how he would have reacted getting deposed without Tindwyl on his side.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it would have been a problem.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a big problem. And I could have seen him getting like assassinated just so they didn't have to deal with his like complaining, and I don't know. I think I'm trying to like parse it out, and it's not really grounded in anything, but I think most of his decisions that he makes, even on this sort of mortal paladin front that we've been talking about, are because of Tindwyl. Mm-hmm. Like, without her and her teachings on like how to act like a king, I think he would have totally spent way more time pouring through the rule or the laws that he put together, trying to find a loophole.
Yeah. Right.
For good reason, to try to like stay in power in order to keep everybody safe from the impending like armies. But I think he's a lot more grounded now and is making better decisions entirely because of her. But that's not really what this section is about. So sorry for the rant.
Okay. I mean, rants are fine. We'll take rants. We take rants here. Next up on the agenda of shit Elend doesn't have to deal with anymore, but is felt with information about the poisoning of the wells. He says the poisoners aren't coming through the pass walls, which we find out now exist. There are walls that people are sneaking through to get in and out of the city, but they are coming in through the river, and Elend gives him a plan to catch them. Larn, a young man, however, offers a different opinion, that it's an inquisitor roaming the streets that poisoned the wells.
I'm inclined to believe, and based on our knowledge, it's not at all Elend's knowledge or the people's knowledge or anything like that, but I'm inclined to believe that it's actually the river, like the grates in the river, that are like the source of this problem. And this inquisitor is Marsh. Though I don't remember if anything happened to Marsh. Like,
no, Marsh is still around.
Something? Yeah, I think this is Marsh.
He ran off. Yeah.
Doing something in town.
Oh, yeah. Marsh. I miss Marsh. We'll see him again, I'm sure.
Are you sure?
I mean, I am, but I can't actually like give you. I know exactly what happens, but I can't like give you details or anything like that.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm fucking with you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I really enjoy that Elend has to deconstruct all of these issues, right? And that he's working his way through them. And I appreciate that he kind of gives a lot of different people their say in court, because he's not really in charge, which I think he also elaborates. And it's like, well, what if they tell us not to? What if the assembly tells us to stop? Then it's like, well, then we'll stop. But until then, we're going to take care of people and we're going to do this. And until they tell me to stop, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep fucking doing it. So they do. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Next up on the shit Elend has to deal with, Ham arrives. Ham shows up and makes a comment about Elend wearing his old uniform again and says that he wishes no one had to wear a uniform, to which Elend points out that even Ham's lack of a coat in the cold weather screams thug and is effectively what wearing clothes does. Changes how people react to you and informs them. Yeah, I like this nice little
So this kind of, but it is quick, but it, I think, is important for me for kind of an external reason. But staying with these characters for a little bit, the way Ham responds here reminds me of the old Ham, and sort of gives a spark of that a little bit. Even though, like, there's the sort of question, like, you didn't talk about this with Breeze. There's still something weird with Ham, and I'm thinking more and more that it's just kind of the weight of everything that's been put on him, like just what's on his shoulders. But either way, Elend has a great point in that, like, uniforms don't have to be official; they just have to be kind of announcing what you are. And it's making me think about Zane and the fact that he doesn't wear a miscloak. So I'm not sure where that thought's going to go. Like, I really don't know. It's kind of preliminary, but it's absolutely going to be on my mind the next time we're talking to Zane and next time we're in his perspective. So we'll see. But I think that's going to stick with me a little bit.
Okay. All right. That's a really interesting read on it. I had never thought about that utility and use, but I think that this again then reinforces the thought about the dress. If we want to pull it out of context a little bit, it informs the way that people react and behave to you. Yeah,
totally fair.
So the fact that we know that Vin is armed in the dress should inform our decision on. I'm only mumbling into this because it feels like I've said this 8 dozen times.
But the dress the dress externally looks like a dress. So yeah, like, I don't know if hidden compartments and hidden alterations to make it work better as a Mistborn apply that much.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, fair. Yeah.
But yeah,
this is specifically about appearance, but it's like,
good point.
This is also, maybe then that's a point to say appearances are deceiving with the dress. Yeah. Anyway. So we then move on to Elend and Ham hatching a plan as they are sure they're stuck in another deadlock between Set and Straff, with Set locked inside the walls with them. To me, this just screams, when I wrote that, I was like, this screams Rorschach in the lunchroom. You know, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. So he takes his horse out one of the pass tunnels and does something absolutely crazy. Rides directly into the Koloss camp. There's a lot of fun beats that happen right around this. Anything you want to talk about? Yeah.
I want to talk about the grandmother.
Oh, Grandma. Yeah, she's sweet.
Yeah, Granny. Yeah. I can't... Yeah. What was her name?
I don't remember her name either. I'll find it. Keep talking about her.
Yeah, so... Specifically, what I like about Granny here is it's a tool to get us to talk more about Ham's background.
Yes, I love Ham's background here. Totally.
And learning that he grew up in Luthadel. Did we already know that? Or did it?
No, this is kind of a big reveal.
And the fact that he would sneak his wife and child into the city through here, which I don't quite understand that so much.
What do you mean? Hilda, by the way.
Hilda,
yeah.
Why are they not just in the city somewhere?
Because he's afraid of people finding them out, because he does, these dangerous jobs and things like that.
Okay,
so
okay,
they're
that makes
removed
sense.
from the city so that they aren't implicated in it.
And have to be snuck in order to spend time. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I get that.
Marta is his wife's name.
Marta.
Hildy and Marta, yeah.
Hildy is grandma.
Yep.
Okay. But he's been kind of working with her for a long time. As a child, would come in and out of this tunnel. And it's like a 5-minute walk from Keep Hastings. Or
Venture.
From Keep Venture. Yeah. Oh, by the way, earlier, you said Venture Bros. Or you said Venture Brothers.
I did. Yeah, and I didn't think Venture Bros. Whoops.
Yep.
Error.
I meant to make a comment on that, but... Sorry, idle.
2
flashback.
Hours later.
Anyway, this is such a bold move of Elend. Like, this is crazy, and I love him for it. The only complaints I have, and maybe it's done because of sort of the clunkiness of the writing or just like the flow of the story. I would have thought he'd go and see Vin before this, just in case. Not tell her what was happening, but just like see her again before leaving. But
I'm intrigued that that's what you called out, versus for me, it's the fact that this has happened twice in a row, week to week, right? My biggest issue is that we're introduced to pass walls, and then in the same chapter, we're using them. So it's like, if that makes sense.
There's that. But we hadn't had a need to learn about the pass walls.
Yeah, and that's where I can forgive it, but at the same time, what feels rewarding is when you give Chekhov's gun time to sit in the drawer,
That's fair.
And
totally fair.
Oh, the pass walls are the solution there, So...
Yeah, but then again, everything's moving so quickly because it has to.
Again, I'm not really harping on it. I'm just saying this is one of those things where it's a page later we're using it because it's specifically been mentioned. It's like, okay, well,
yeah.
Minor,
I think
minor thing.
Honestly, I think it would have been better if they didn't reveal it first. Yeah. And he was just talking to Ham about like, oh, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to do if only we'd get around the armies? And Ham's like, I got you.
Yeah, and we get good reasons and rationales as to why we haven't known about these, and that's because Ham has been suspect of anyone else knowing about them and what that would mean.
Right. I'm just saying, like, if they hadn't talked about the pass walls before, and Ham's the one that introduces it to him here. Like, he's leading him here to get out and do the plan.
Right.
That could have been cool. I hadn't taken note of it and hadn't taken issue with it.
By the way, this was an extra screwdriver for everyone who is watching along.
Very nice.
I'm slowly nursing another cocktail. Anyway. It was another secret the whole time. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't see a need to really dwell on that in general.
Yeah. Agreed. And like I said, it's not that big of a deal. It's a small thing. This is like, of all the things, this doesn't knock the book down at all. It's just one of those things where it's happened a couple of times. It's like, generally prefer Chekhov's gun. This is already the longest book in this series by a bit. It's longer than Hero of Ages. So very clearly he probably had more and he probably cut it down because it was like, you can't, you got to get some of the stuff out to make sure that the story flows. So I can imagine this being something that was probably planned for ahead of time and then got reduced down to the only section that's relevant in. So
totally fair.
Yeah, but I love Grandma Hildy. I think Grandma Hildy is great. I think that also like all of her grandchildren that she says, and she's like, I'll leave him out there. God knows I have enough of them, or something like that.
Grandsons, I think.
Yeah, grandsons.
I'm guessing are just children in the area, like the people that she interacts with, because it seems like everybody calls her grandmother, so naturally she calls everybody grandson or grandchild.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Elend approaches a field that has been gnawed flat, and suddenly we're back with the Koloss. We get a neat amount of world building here, saying that they can be controlled crudely with swords, which I think is fascinating. And they say something kind of funny. They claim in all their blue stretched skin glory, cuts kind of everywhere on their skin, to be human, and that they're going to take the city and then live in it like humans, because they are human. What do you think about this whole section with the little Koloss here?
I'm not quite sure why it struck me, but I really liked that comment. It was funny, but it was also aspirational to a certain extent.
I think aspirational is a great way to put that. Yeah,
it gave this unique motivation for the entire army. Like, they want civilization and they want more sophistication, or at least like they want to get out of their current lifestyle. And I assume that this is being pushed by Jostes, and like he's using it as a means of control, but it's weirdly nice to see and like weirdly touching.
I think that's also why, and we can talk about this near the end too. I think that's also why Jostes is doing such a good job controlling them with currency, is because it makes them feel civilized. They're being paid.
Don't technically know that it's currency. Well, we don't know that it's coin.
He's paying them, right?
He is paying them, but we don't know what's in those.
We don't necessarily know. Yeah, we don't know exactly what it is, but we do know that they're paying them. The point being, though, is that adds a layer to civilization, like you're saying. It's that civilized nature, and it's what they're like striving for, is to, be more like humans.
Yeah, be humans. They are humans. Yeah. They're not Koloss. Specifically, they're not Koloss.
Not Koloss. Yeah. Specifically, the big blue dude, skin ripped flesh, very scary, eats your horse later, says, we're humans.
We're not Koloss.
Yeah. I really appreciate the like horse disappearing bit that happens later, and it's like, what the fuck? I think I missed that in my first read through this book, and I caught it this time, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. That's a pretty good bit. Yeah, I really like that, and the fact that like the field is gnawed flat, like everything's missing, like the grass has been pulled out of the ground, is really, really odd.
Yeah, it's strange.
I don't know, love it.
But it's super cool. I don't know.
Yeah, it's super cool. Love the Koloss. Do you have any? So I'll ask this at the end. I'll hold that one until the end. Elend finally meets up with his old friend Jostes. I find this a truly fascinating conversation, as Jostes also tried Elend's ways and failed, and saw everyone he knew and loved killed for it. What do you make to be the difference between Elend's approach and the path that Jostes describes? Also, for the record, this is way better in audiobook. This little section, like Jostes speaking, is so much better. You feel the pain and the torment that this character has been through, wherein just reading it, you don't get that, because there's no description of like any reactions or anything like that. So really, hats off to Michael Kramer for that, because it breathes life into this bit.
I'd be curious if he had any notes on how to read this, or if he just...
I think he makes notes for the most part. Most audiobook, from my knowledge of listening to interviews, they generally read through the book and then like take some notes, and then they read through it again and take some notes, and then they'll do like chapters or scenes, and then have like a director maybe be listening and be like, consider this.
Okay. Perfect. So. But this exchange and this conversation adds complication and similarly motivation to Jostes' actions with this. I'm sure there's a name for this trope, but I don't know what it is. And I know that this exists outside of the Star Wars universe, but it had this weird hint of sort of the Obi-Wan, Anakin corruption path relationship sort of interaction.
Okay.
Of like two people with a very similar like origin, and there was like an event that really corrupted one of them, and now they're opposing each other. Because I mean, what Josty's faced was super tragic, and unfortunately, Elend really didn't respond in a compassionate way here.
Not at all. This is really odd. Like, this is a really odd response.
Yeah, it was a pretty big fuck up, I think. I'm curious to see how Josty's actually set up his rule and set up his dominance, and how it all turned to shit. You know?
Mm-hmm. It'd be more interesting to get the granular breakdown. Yeah.
It would. Because Elend, while it failed with him at the helm, he had it very well set up with contingencies, and there was a path out that wasn't murder you and all of your family. You know? So maybe that's the biggest difference. Like, if this wasn't set up the same way as Elend set it up so meticulously, maybe he would have faced a similar fate. He almost did anyway.
Yeah.
Vin kind of saved it.
True. Actually, very true. Like, to Zane's point, one of the biggest differences between Josty's and Elend is Vin and the entirety of the crew of the Survivor. Like, those are some critical points that help reinforce everything that Elend was able to pull off. And that's why I feel like Elend made the wrong call here. This is one of the few things that I fully disagree with. I don't think it was the right move to come here and insult Josty's. I do appreciate the conversation that they have, but I don't think that Elend was sincerely approaching it the right way. No. I also think that Elend's reaction to like being offered the alcohol and whatnot, like he was trying to be like buddies with his drinking buddy, right? Like this is his friend trying to do the friendly thing that they were doing forever before. This is Elend showing that he's changed and like owning up to the kingly nature of, you know, what he's altered his life to do. And I guess the only rationale with which I can approach and appreciate what Elend decided to do here is he's doing it for Luthadel, but he is doing it at the loss of arguably his closest friend from the previous novel, like his childhood best friend, maybe something like that. But
yeah, at the same time, his childhood best friend is riding up on Luthadel because he thinks he can best Elend and take. Well, you know,
he's not like exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. Yeah, that's not a nuanced way to put it. He was seeking an
alliance. Yeah, he was seeking an alliance more than anything else. But at the same time, you can see Josty's corruption via the discussion of power. And so that's also why he's in charge of this Koloss army, is because he's holding as powerful of troops as he can. So there's a little bit of wax and wane there between the two.
And I think Elend sees it as an act of aggression.
Yeah.
Because it's another army on his doorstep. So I think he has to sort of take... From his point of view, he sort of has to take the initiative and be imposing to the best of his ability. Do something dramatic. Both for Luthadel and for himself. And like the perception of him in the eyes of Vin, first of all, from his perspective, like he needs to like reinstate his sort of kingly position in Vin's eyes. He doesn't, right, but he thinks so. And everybody else, maybe this can persuade them to listen to him more. I don't know. There's a few different things that I could see this being, like, there's a few different reasons why I could see this happening. But either way, like, no matter what, it feels odd. But we kind of have to take it with face value. So
definitely. I just want to mention this quote because I really love it. It fits into exactly what we're saying. The losses are what defines a man's faith. And this is interesting as it's coming from Elend's mouth. And he doesn't mean... He's not thinking about loss the way that Josty's is either in this moment, right? Like Josty's is like, I just told you that I lost my entire family for believing in you and your ideals and like what you stood for. And you're telling me that those losses are what defines a man's faith in this shit? Fuck you.
Yep.
Elend's point was like, failing is is what defines like faith. Like that's supposed to be that bit. And so this gets a little jumbled in terms of message here, but
it does. Even if the message was perfectly clear.
It was bad.
It's a bad time to say that.
Yeah,
like,
this is like negotiate failure. This is like roll a d20, rolling a nat 1, a nat 1, and a nat 1 in a row. Like, this is just, what the fuck? And so he switched to stabbing him, because he's like, that's how I'm going to convince him. I'm going to stab him. Putting this in D&D parlance makes it really believable in this context.
Man, so stabbing him, I'm just going to try to justify it. I don't think it's the right move, but I'm going to try to justify it. I think what it can do, and I think what he's trying for, is to show Jostes that he's evolved and he's become less of an armchair philosopher. And he's trying to be, for lack of a better term, he's trying to be a philosopher king.
Yeah, yeah.
And trying to be this well-rounded warrior and philosopher and like moral paladin, like we've been talking about. And maybe he's trying to convince him to like ally himself with, like, convince Jostes to ally himself with Elend. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I think you mentioned it before. That seemed to be kind of what Jostes was going for in the first place, but Elend didn't know that. You know, like Elend saw this as an act of aggression. So, like, win the act of aggression and open up discussions for an alliance potentially. But, you know, you kind of have to start talking after that instead of just fucking leaving, because then you're guaranteed that, like, you're not going to open up more conversation after that. I don't know. This whole thing's fucked. I don't understand. Maybe he has a justification. I guess the justification is he was being imprisoned. Like, the order was to take him. So
right.
He attacked and escaped, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best justification, I guess, for like why he ultimately did it, was to put him in his place, I guess. But yeah, this is tough to parse. I think you're right. I don't think that I can really say it better, to be honest. I think you've pieced out a lot of that very well. And also, like, the fact that he gets him and then he like pushes it in further, like, that's a brutal move. And almost, and then he like threatens his life and he's like, I could have killed you. I didn't, because we were friends. And it's just like, you came to this. What would that have done to the Koloss? It would have sent them into an absolute raving band. They're already like dangerously unstable, but
yeah, I don't think that's even on his mind at all.
No. And I don't, man.
It's all so weird.
Yeah, agreed. And then there's that final scene, the very final scene of this chapter. Elend's horse has gone missing. He needs to head back to Luthadel, of course, and adrenaline is still pumping from what happened to him, you know, with the stabbing in the tent, the breaking of the other guy's nose when he threw his elbow backwards and whatnot. Elend kills a very small Koloss, a 5-footer, as it were. You know, it's no small feat, of course, a very big, muscular, you know, imposing creature for sure. But it does point something out to him. Jostes is controlling the Koloss the old-fashioned way by paying them, as we said. What did you think about the fight with the Koloss?
What a fucking scene, man. Like, he almost was in over his head. Pretty close. He chose right to go the smallest one available. What was, like, there was a lot that took me by surprise here. One, more important than a lot of it, is the fact that the Koloss, they stand back when they're fighting each other, but I figured they would like jump in if fighting someone else outside of their own troop, but they don't. They respect power, period. So watching a duel doesn't matter that the other opponent isn't also Koloss. So I appreciated that. I think it makes for a really rich understanding of their like power structure and their system of their loose system of governance outside of Jostes. But just his decision to attack the Koloss was really frustratingly confusing in the first place. You know, like, I don't understand what Elend's doing here.
I think it was just rage and trying to like figure something out. So it was like he wanted to figure out how he was controlling them, and so he basically channeled rage to do so. I agree with you.
Try asking.
Yeah, no. which he also says like probably true. They're very humble beings outside of their humongous stature and size.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah.
But he had a conversation with the one that like killed the other one that was leading him.
Yeah.
You know? And he like asked him like what he did that for. He didn't ask him what's in the bags. That would have been important. That would have been way easier. I don't know. What's going on with Elend here?
Man possessed, you know?
A man possessed.
Not actual possession given, but like, you know.
I am excited. On a positive note, like just assuming everything is good, like all the justifications work out, everything's good. He had reasoning. Let's see if he had a reason outside of fucking wanting to know what's in their coin purses.
Well, he ate his horse, you know?
Yeah. But I'm excited to see what this does for Elend's standing amongst the Koloss. Like, are they going to see him favorably because he decided to interact with, like, fighting someone? They seem to kind of respect it. Mm-hmm. They respect fighting. They respect power. So maybe the Koloss will be receptive to communication from Elend in the future because of this. That'd be cool. But yeah, who knows?
It'd be very cool. Cool. With that, we move into our final logbook here to mention, another really short one. The others call me mad, as I have said. And that may be true. Fucking Quan, dude.
Has this been said before?
No.
Okay. Other things similar to it have been said before. Like, yeah, man, fucking Quan. What the fuck is going on? This also seems... I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if this is on the same tome. It doesn't feel like it. Anything that's more like about him and using like conversational language, I feel like isn't on the same tome. You know?
Okay.
I don't know.
Cool. With that, we move into PJ's predictions here. And we do have one to pay off. Here. So I'm going to pay it off because it feels appropriate, because it was kind of a question about society and Koloss. So the question here, the statement rather, was lowering himself down from the tree. There's a question of what exactly these men are going to do to him, the Koloss. But they seem to have decent intentions. They walk him to the camp as they do, and as they do, Sazed sees two different things. One, a Koloss killing another Koloss, seemingly for no reason, and two, a small pouch on their backs. What do you think about the society blooming here? You said...
They seem like they've been promised something and must follow their orders, bringing any people to the king. Following my thought process from before, I wonder if the promise is integration into society. For that, they've been taught about money and have been each given coins to begin their lives within a city.
So I think the fact that you're pointing towards society is the reason that I want to pay this one off. Like, you're pointing towards them wanting to...
Integrate.
Yeah, totally. So that's where I'm going to take the drink, because I think you nailed that idea on the head. That's what they're seeking. So cheers.
I'll drink with you.
That defeats the purpose, but good for you. Cool. All right. So that brings us to generally last week's question of the week. I, folks, did not pull any of the answers that I received into this document because we decided to do this live on our Discord this week. So a little bit different. So I'm not going to re-ask the same question, but we'll be answering that question next week. With that, I don't think we're going to ask a question, but if you want to send in your final answers about favorite political turn of misfortune in a story, feel free to do so. Yeah, we'll just push the question basically for another week. So if you feel the need, feel free. Next week we will come armed with a new question. So don't worry about that. Yep. Don't worry about that.
Crossland just mentioned up top. This we did a little bit differently. We did it live, so anybody in our Discord was able to jump in and listen. I think we're going to plan on doing this more often. Maybe not every time.
Definitely not every time.
Not every time.
I'm promising maybe once a month.
Okay. But I think it went well. It was fun.
Yeah.
People seem to be having fun in the chat, those that were participating. So If you'd like to join us on that, wordsandwhiskey.com, or no, patreon.com/wordsandwhiskey. Any of the, I think it's the $4 tier and above. Is that all of the tiers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just offering this to everyone.
Yeah, so any tier, whenever we do that, you are invited. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's it for things there. Cool. With that, next week we will be reading chapters 43 through 47. Again, chapters 43 through 47. So that's where we'll leave you for the week.
Thank you, as always, to Tim and Andrew for keeping the show's lights on. As usual, you can check us out check out all the links in the show notes. You can find our schedule, our Patreon, previous episodes, our website, all of our social media accounts in one very convenient location.
Yeah, and thank you to our, I think I actually missed this from previous weeks, but thank you to our upgraded patron, Barback to Bartender, Dream X Theater 21. We really appreciate it. Glad to have you get the extra content and all those back shows. We're very excited for those. Also to start coming out eventually here in May-ish at this point, I think is kind of the game plan. So very excited. If you haven't already, again, you can follow us on social media. PJ said you can find all of our socials. If you want to search for them directly, Words and Whiskey Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit. That'll get you there. If you want to send in your question of the week. Sorry, I fuck it up every time. It's literally written in the document. Words Whiskey Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit, as well as Facebook now. Again, Words Whiskey Pod. If you want to send in any comments, feedback, any thoughts, or anything like that, feel free to leave us a review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate that. It makes a world of difference. We've got a couple of new ones in, and I think we might do a little review read on the next episode because we've gotten some new ones on Apple Podcasts. So beyond that, send us any other feedback to wordsandwhiskeyshow@gmail.com and check us out, like PJ said, at patreon.com/wordsandwhiskey.
Thank you. Of course, everybody, thank you for your support, for listening, for subscribing. Really means the world to us because we spend a lot of time on this and it consumes a lot of our life and we love it, but we love it because we get to share it with you. So looking forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah. See you then.